You know what is strange? People say they want to be understood, but the moment someone actually looks inside them, they panic. Not because they are weak. Not because they are broken. But because being truly seen is the most terrifying experience a human can have. We are not scared of darkness. We are not scared of failure. We are not scared of loneliness. We are scared of exposure. The fear that someone might look at our heart and realize we are not as strong as we pretend to be. All our lives, we build walls around ourselves. Brick by brick. Smile by smile. Joke by joke. We cover wounds with confidence and hide insecurities behind achievements. We act like we are fine because the world celebrates performance and punishes honesty. You learn early that showing your real feelings is like walking into a battlefield unarmed. So you hide them. You protect them. You bury them so deep that even you forget where you kept them. But no matter how well you hide, the fear remains. What if someone sees the real me? What if someone sees the cracks? What if someone sees the chaos I pretend is calm? Because deep inside, you know the truth. You are not the person people think you are. You are not the endlessly strong one. You are not the always stable one. You are not the unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable figure the world expects you to be. Inside you is a storm. A storm you do not talk about. A storm you hope no one ever discovers. And that is the tragedy. Humans crave connection, but fear vulnerability. We want to be known, but hide ourselves. We want to be held, but act like we do not need anyone. We want to be understood, but speak encoded emotions that no one can decode. The truth is, you do not fear people seeing your darkness. You fear people seeing your light. The parts of you that are soft, gentle, sensitive, full of dreams you never admitted out loud. Those are the parts you protect the most. Those are the parts you bury the deepest. Those are the parts you are terrified to reveal. Because if the world rejects your mask, that is painful, but survivable. If the world rejects your true self, that feels fatal. So you keep pretending. You keep performing. You keep acting like you do not care. You keep living behind emotional armor that protects you from pain, but also isolates you from love. But here is the truth nobody tells you: you cannot be loved without being seen. You cannot be understood without being known. You cannot be free without being honest. You cannot be whole while hiding pieces of yourself. The world does not need the perfect version of you. It needs the real one, the flawed one, the complicated one, the brave one, who chooses authenticity over applause. Because the moment you allow yourself to be truly seen, not the mask, not the performance, not the persona, but the real you, that is the moment your life finally begins. But here is the part most people never admit: the mask does not just hide your truth from the world, it hides your truth from yourself. You get so used to acting strong that you forget how to ask for help. You get so used to saying "I'm okay" that you forget what real honesty feels like. You get so used to carrying everything alone that putting something down feels like weakness. And slowly, you become a stranger inside your own life. You look in the mirror and see a version of yourself that looks stable, but feels distant. A version that looks confident, but feels numb. A version that looks alive, but feels like it is standing in the shadows of the person you were meant to be. Because living behind a mask is not living, it is surviving. And survival is not enough. For a soul like yours, there comes a moment, quiet, small, almost unnoticeable, when pretending becomes exhausting, when the smile does not rise naturally, when the laughter feels hollow, when the weight of secrecy becomes heavier than the fear of being seen. That moment is dangerous and beautiful. Dangerous because it feels like falling apart. Beautiful because it is the first step toward becoming whole. People think strength means hiding your pain. They think strength means being silent. They think strength means never breaking. But real strength is the courage to be visible. To say, this is who I am. This is what I feel. This is the truth I have been carrying. Strength is not the lack of vulnerability. Strength is the honesty of vulnerability. Because the truth is this, people do not fall in love with your perfection. They fall in love with your humanity, your cracks, your depth, your realness, your courage to feel. And maybe that is what you have been avoiding. Being loved for who you truly are. Not for your control, not for your calm, not for your mask, but for your soul. The soul you keep hiding, out of fear that people will run if they see how much you feel. But the right people do not run from your darkness. They walk into it with the light in their hands. The right people do not shrink from your truth. They honor it. The right people do not fear your depth. They drown in it willingly. The right people do not love the mask. They love the face beneath it. And maybe that is what terrifies you. Because once someone sees the real you, you cannot hide anymore. Once someone understands you, you cannot pretend anymore. Once someone loves your truth, your lies lose power. And the life you built around pretending begins to crack. But the cracks are not a sign of collapse. They are a sign of rebirth. Because no soul can stay hidden forever. No truth can stay buried forever. No heart can stay armored forever. Eventually, something inside you whispers, I am tired of hiding. I am tired of acting. I am tired of living a life that is not mine. And that whisper, that quiet rebellion, is the beginning of freedom. Freedom to feel. Freedom to speak. Freedom to exist. Without shrinking, without pretending. Without armor. Without fear. Because the moment you allow yourself to be truly seen, not as a character, not as a performance, not as a mask, but as a human, that is the moment your soul breathes again. And once your soul tastes freedom, it never settles for hiding again. But here is the strange part, even after your soul begins to breathe again, even after you taste a small drop of freedom, a part of you still hesitates. Not because you want to go back to the mask, but because you do not know how to live without it anymore. You have worn it for so long that taking it off feels like stepping into cold air. After living underground for years, your skin is sensitive. Your emotions feel exposed. Your heart feels louder than your thoughts. It is overwhelming. Healing always begins as discomfort. No one tells you that. People say be yourself. But they never tell you that finding yourself might break you a little more before it saves you. Because when you remove the mask, you also remove all the excuses that kept you distant from your own truth. You can no longer say, "I am fine." You can no longer hide behind sarcasm, silence, or strength. You are suddenly faced with the real weight of everything you suppressed, the grief you avoided, the pain you ignored, the dreams you abandoned, the versions of yourself you killed to survive. And standing in front of all that is terrifying. But here is the miracle. Your heart does not ask for perfection. It only asks for permission. Permission to feel. Permission to speak. Permission to exist without apology. That permission is the first real gift you ever give yourself. You begin to understand that vulnerability is not weakness. It is alignment. Alignment with who you truly are, not who you pretended to be. And in that alignment, something begins to shift. Quietly. Slowly. But unmistakably. You start noticing that the world does not end when you speak honestly. People do not vanish when you express pain. The sky does not fall when you stop pretending to be strong. Instead, you feel lighter. Not because the burden is gone, but because it is finally shared with the one person who needed to hear it the most. Yourself. You start realizing that you were never scared of being seen by others. You were scared of being seen by you. Because once you look at your own soul, without judgment, without filters, without pretension, you can no longer ignore its hunger. The hunger for meaning. The hunger for rest. The hunger for real connection. The hunger to stop surviving and start living. And this is the moment where a new life quietly begins. Not a perfect life. Not a loud, dramatic transformation. But a real one. A life where your emotions do not need permission to exist. A life where you no longer shrink to fit the comfort of others. A life where honesty is not a risk. It is a foundation, and the more you live this way, the more you realize something profound. You were never too much. You were never too emotional. You were never too intense. You were simply surrounded by people who were too afraid to face their own depth. And you were the mirror they were not ready to look into. But now you understand that your depth is not a burden. It is a gift. A rare one. A powerful one. Because people who feel deeply are the ones who live deeply. People who love deeply are the ones who heal deeply. People who break deeply are the ones who transform deeply. You were never meant to be shallow. You were never meant to be numb. You were never meant to live a small, quiet, hidden existence. Your soul was built for more. More truth. More intensity. More honesty. More life. But you cannot reach that more while clinging to the masks that kept you safe. Safety is not the same as freedom. Comfort is not the same as peace. Silence is not the same as healing. There comes a day. Unexpected, unplanned, but inevitable. When you finally stop running from yourself. A day when you realize that your emotions are not enemies. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. Your vulnerability is not a wound. It is your power. And the moment you accept that, the world around you changes. Not because it is different, but because you are. You stop needing approval to exist. You stop needing permission to feel. You stop needing validation to breathe. You start living in a way that is so honest, so unfiltered, so unapologetically real, that everything falls away on its own. Masks drop, walls break, fear softens, truth rises, and for the first time, you understand, being seen is not terrifying, it is liberating. Being known is not dangerous, it is healing. Being real is not the end of your strength, it is the beginning of it. And once you reach this point, once you taste this level of authenticity, you will never, ever go back to who you used to be. But here is the truth that hits you only when you finally step into yourself. Authenticity is not a destination. It is a practice, a daily decision, a quiet rebellion against everything that tried to silence you. Because even when you become honest, the old habits do not disappear overnight. The mask still whispers. The fear still returns. The urge to shrink still tries to pull you back into the spaces where you once survived. Healing is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You will revisit old wounds when you least expect it. You will face old insecurities right when you think you have outgrown them. You will feel familiar fears rise again like ghosts who forgot they were supposed to be dead. But this time, you are not the same person you were when those fears were born. This time, you have seen yourself. You have heard your own truth. You have tasted real freedom. And even if you fall differently. You fall with awareness, with understanding, with self-kindness, with a softness that once felt impossible. Because the more honest you become with your own soul, the less you punish yourself for being human. You stop demanding perfection from your emotions. You stop calling your depth too much. You stop apologizing for the parts of you that finally learned how to breathe. And slowly, your relationship with yourself begins to shift. You begin to trust yourself more. Not because you never break, but because you now know you can rise. You begin to respect yourself more. Not because you never doubt, but because you keep choosing truth. Even when it scares you. You begin to soften with yourself. Not because you are weak, but because harshness never healed you anyway. And with this shift comes something even deeper. You begin to attract connections that match your new self. People who are not intimidated by your intensity. People who do not run from your truths. People who are not confused by your silence or your storms. People who listen, not to reply, but to understand. These people do not want your mask. They want your essence. They do not celebrate your performance. They honor your presence. They do not love your strength. They appreciate your softness. And for the first time, you see the difference between being liked and being understood, between being admired and being valued, between being noticed and being known. And you realize you spent years chasing the wrong kind of acceptance, the kind that demanded you hide your real self, the kind that rewarded your silence, the kind that loved the mask but ignored the soul behind it? Now you finally see what your heart was craving all along. Connection without performance. Love without fear. Presence without pretending. And here is the quiet miracle: the more real you become, the more real the world around you feels. Colors look sharper. Conversations feel deeper. Moments carry weight. Instead of emptiness, people become stories. Instead of distractions, life becomes something you participate in, not something you merely endure. Because when you stop hiding, you stop drifting. Your life stops feeling accidental. Your emotions stop feeling dangerous. Your choices stop feeling forced. For the first time, you move with intention, with clarity, with a sense of inner direction that does not come from noise, but from truth. And yet, even in this newfound clarity, there is another realization. A softer one, a humbler one, a deeper one. You are still learning. You are still becoming. You are still unfolding. And that is okay. You do not need to have every answer. You do not need to heal every wound immediately. You do not need to bloom on command. You only need to keep choosing the version of yourself that refuses to disappear. The version that tells the truth, even when her voice shakes. The version that feels deeply, even when the world calls it dangerous. The version that shows up, even when hiding would be easier. Because this journey is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. And the more real you become, the more you discover something you spent your whole life missing. You were never hard to love. You were simply hidden. And now, you are finally coming home to yourself.